2024 is changing the game for estate planning. Are you ready to see how you can make these changes work for you? Well, let's dive into what's new and what it means for the future. Hi, I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of the estate planning guys. In today's video, we're breaking down the latest trends in estate planning for 2024. Making it easy for you to stay ahead and protect what matters most. So let's take a quick look at why it's essential to keep up with estate planning changes. Well, the truth of the matter is that if the law changes and your plan is not updated to reflect those changes in the law, then what you wanted to happen when you pass away, the reason you undertook estate planning in the first place can be completely undermined because sometimes the law changes so much that what you have in your estate plan just doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't work the way that you intended it to. So the first thing to know is that it's super important that you periodically visit with your estate planning attorney to see if there are any changes in the law that necessitate changes in your estate plan. There's two other reasons that I think a periodic review is a really great idea. The first one is that things change about the people that you've named for certain roles in your plan. So for example, you may have decided that you wanted your brother to serve as your power of attorney agent or as your successor trustee or executor. And now it's 3 years later and maybe your brother's not doing so well health-wise. And so it would be a burden on him to be able to take on that role. And so that's an important thing to consider and why you want to sit down with an estate planning attorney on a regular basis. I suggest at least every 3 years to see if there need to be any updates because of changes in the people that you have serving in certain roles. And then the third reason that I think periodic review of your planning is really important is that you change your mind about how you want things to be distributed from your estate. So let's face it, if you have kids that are minors right now, they could wind up going a completely different direction than what you expect to happen. And so it's important that you review the plan periodically to make sure that the plan reflects what your current circumstances and what the circumstances of your beneficiaries are. So those are three good reasons that you need to review your estate plan in 2024. The next thing is federal estate and gift tax exemptions. The federal estate and gift tax exemption is what's called a unified exemption. So what that means is that it's really one exemption that you can either use during your lifetime for gifts or you can use upon your death for estate taxes. And so it will exempt either a gift or an estate bequest from estate tax. Now, in 2024, the estate tax exemption is $13.61 million per person. So that means that if your estate is worth less than $13,610,000, you don't have to worry about the estate tax. And the other thing to understand is that for a married couple, you get double that. So you're going to get essentially $27.2 million worth of estate tax exemption that you can use either during your lifetime for gifts or you can use upon your death for estate tax. So that's how the estate tax works. It's a really high exemption right now, and not too many people are affected by that. But this is the other thing you need to know about the estate and gift tax is that at the end of 2025, the estate tax exemption is going to sunset. So this estate tax exemption scheme was put into place in 2017. And at the end of 2025, it's going to sunset. So what that means is that we will go back to the same estate tax exemption that we had in 2017. And the way the estate tax worked in 2017, the exemption worked, was that you had a base $5 million exemption, and then on top of that, it was tied to inflation. So it kept pace with inflation, basically. The base was $5 million, and then it was tied to inflation. So we estimate that by the end of 2025, you should see approximately a $7 million, and that's a guess, but approximately a $7 million exemption per person, or $14 million for a married couple. And then the other thing to know about it, I know the estate tax is kind of complicated and it doesn't affect that many people, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But the other thing to know about it is that for married people, you can use both spouses exemption without really having to do any fancy planning at all. Now, I personally wouldn't rely on that if you are in the category of needing or potentially having a taxable estate. I wouldn't rely on that because it requires action to be taken upon the death of the first spouse. but just know that it is possible to use both spouses exemptions. So for a married couple, right now, 27.2 million, and we expect in 2025, when the sunset happens and the estate tax exemption reverts back to 2017 numbers, we expect that to be around $7 million. Okay, so we've talked about estate and gift tax exemptions and kind of how that works. So what's the deal with the GST tax, and what is that? So GST stands for Generation Skipping Transfer, and it is a tax that was put in place so that families couldn't just skip a generation and leave all their wealth to their grandchildren and thereby skip the estate tax. So it's a way for the government to ensure that they still get their share even if you decide to skip a generation when you pass down your assets. Now, it is a separate tax from the estate tax and the gift tax, so it is a separate exemption. But before this generation skipping transfer tax scheme was in place, what a lot of wealthy people would do is they would just skip their kids and they would leave everything to their grandchildren. Their kids would serve as the trustees during their lifetime. They could receive an income, et cetera, but the bulk of the estate would be left to the grandchildren and there would be no estate tax. So Congress put this in place to make sure that didn't happen anymore and that the government didn't miss out on the estate taxes that would have been collected when those assets passed from parent to child. So in 2024, just like with the estate and gift tax exemptions, the GST tax exemption, the generation skipping transfer tax exemption, has gone up to $13.61 million. So this means that you can pass up to $13.61 million to your grandchildren or to people who are more than 2 generations below you. It's just that your grandchildren are the first that are 2 generations. So you could go 3 generations or 4 if you have that many generations from your family that are alive. So if you're thinking about leaving a significant amount to your grandchildren or someone who's more than 2 generations below you, the GST tax is something that you'll want to consider in your planning. If you use the exemption wisely, you can pass on more to the next generations without paying a hefty tax bill. So to make the most of this, you might want to consider setting up a trust that qualifies for the GST tax exemption. So you could leave a trust for your grandchildren, and that way the assets can be managed when they're passed down and not just, given to your children or grandchildren to spend on whatever. So it's like putting a plan in place that says, here's a gift for you way down the line without losing a chunk of it to taxes. And effectively, if you use both the estate and gift tax exemption for a married couple and the generation transfer tax exemption, you can pass a lot on to your family without having to pay any estate taxes. Now, one of the really cool things with estate planning right now is managing online assets, and you can set up special trusts to manage digital assets. So those could be things like, your Facebook page. I don't know if that has value, or it could be things like your digital movie collection or music collection. And you can set up trusts to transfer those assets into and manage those for your family going forward. So that is something that we've seen a lot of interest in recently. And the other thing you want to keep an eye on is, are there any state laws that have changed in the state where you live with respect to estate planning? So these are things you should be looking out for in the news, or a message from your estate planning attorney about, hey, here are some changes that are taking place in our state. I'm practicing Georgia, and currently we have no significant changes to the estate tax, to estate planning in Georgia that, really impact planning for 24. But pay attention to what's going on in your state and whether there are changes that you might need to make due to some changes in state law. So we've talked about some different things that you want to consider, some gifting strategies. We talked about the generation skipping transfer tax. We talked about the estate planning tax and things you want to keep in mind as you do your planning. The big thing is that you need to periodically review your estate plan and make sure that it's up to date with whatever the current laws are, your wishes and desires, and what the circumstances are around your family and the people that you have serving in the roles in your estate plan. So serving as trustees or agents on your power of attorney or executors. So you want to keep those things in mind. It's a great time now to sit down with your estate planning attorney and review where you are and where you want to be. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you don't know exactly what to do, don't worry, we're here to help. Smith Barid, we're experts in making estate planning simple and effective. So whether you're just getting started or you're looking to update your plan with the latest trends, just give us a call. Check out our website or reach out directly. Thanks for watching. Keep up with the latest in estate planning by subscribing to our channel. And if this video helped you, give it a like and share it with friends and family who could use this information too. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks on securing your legacy. See you next time. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, then take a moment right now to subscribe by clicking below and turn on the bell notification so you get notified every time we post up a new video. Right now we're posting 3 videos a week with lots of information about various estate planning topics, so you're going to want to make sure to stay on top of that. Click below to subscribe and click right over here to watch the next most relevant video about estate planning. Go watch it now.